This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
The story goes something like this. Fresh out of school with an accounting degree, but crunching numbers for somebody else is not that much fun. You start a technology business before that was the hip thing to do. Sell it, make a couple of bucks, and then get in the automobile dealership business. We'll talk with Sandy Sansing on this edition of Conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for choosing to spend some time with us. We welcome to our set Sandy Sansing. Many of you know him, big automotive dealer here in Northwest Florida and around South Alabama. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the car industry. But before we get into that, let me get you to kind of tell everybody your story. How did you get from accounting to automobile dealerships?
It's not a normal path, is it, Jeff?
It's not.
I majored in accounting at University of West Florida, went to PJC first, and tried accounting for less than a year, climbing through vaults, looking for canceled checks, sitting running an ad machine all day, and I said, this is not for me. So a friend of mine had worked for the Burroughs Corporation, and way back when there were 3 computer companies, Burroughs, IBM, and NCR. And I started with them. My first assignment was to go to Detroit and learn how to sell adding machines. So I put a 29-pound adding machine under my arm. It was the middle of summer with a 3-piece suit walking up and down Mobile, knocking on doors. Could I please sell you an adding machine today? And I had to do that till I'd sold $10,000 of adding machines. And then I went to my next school and my next school. I did that for about 4.5 years. I became a sales manager, had 5 young salesmen. Some of them were older than me at the time. I was 27, working for me. And then another fellow and I left to begin our own business. I had saved $2,000 bagging groceries in high school and junior college and cutting some yards. And I had what I thought was a little bit of money, and he was married and had his wife's income. So we took off and began a computer business.
And what type of computer stuff were you doing in those days?
Our business, Digital Equipment Corporation, was a new computer company out of Boston, and they're the first company that came along with what the CRT, or the video screen, that every child sees today. Back in my days, when I was selling the computers at first, there were the big cards and punch paper tape and all these archaic ways of capturing data. But Digital Equipment had the very first CRT video, and they had the very first floppy disk. Some people have seen the little, like a radio, the record, the floppy disk. And that's what we had. And the first year we sold to anybody who we could sell a computer to, and we ended up selling a credit union, a CPA firm, a contractor. And we were driving back from Atlanta. We had been in business 1 year. And we had our feelings hurt by some competitors there who I was really proud. Look at what we've got. And I said, what do you think? And he said, I think you need to find another business. And it was like an arrow in our heart. And we drove back realizing we had sold 10 computers. We didn't really have a happy customer because we were selling to anybody that would buy. We didn't have any expertise in any field. We owed more money than we had in the bank, so we were legally bankrupt. And we said, what do we do?
So what'd you do?
Well, we put our thinking caps on and said, we're going to keep trying. So rather than sell to anybody we could, we said, let's be the very best in one business. And I had a degree in accounting. My partner had a degree in accounting. And at the time, the competitive systems for accountants was not real good. So we said, let's go after the CPA firms and public accountants. And we took that market, and over the next 3 to 4 years, we became the biggest in the United States. We had almost 1,000 CPA firms scattered from California to Maine to Florida. One time I was on the road 6 weeks driving a van, hauling a computer, rolling it into the Texas Society of CPA's annual convention. And then I'd go to Arkansas. And I didn't come home for 6 weeks, and I about killed myself. But we were displaying, showing our product to CPA firms. And we became the best at that one market. And that was our ticket to success.
What was that extra bit of whatever it is in your heart, in your soul, or whatever, that when your feelings get hurt, that you say, you know what, I'm going to give it one more shot? What is that something people have just naturally in them, or?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I knew that right before I left Burroughs to start our own business, I went home, told my daddy what I was going to do, and he knew I was thinking about it. But I said, I'm going to resign tomorrow. And then I got cold feet the night before, and I said, Daddy, I think I may not do this. I'm a little scared. And he looked at me and he said, Sandy, I don't want to see you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder thinking, what if? Mm-hmm. He said, go for it. Give it all you've got. Give it all you've got. You can't give any more. And if you don't make it, well, you're young. You'll get another job, but go for it. And I still had that fire in my belly, I guess you could say, and I was young. I wanted to do it. I still thought we could be successful. I realized that our path we were on was kind of doomed to destruction. We didn't, that day you had to write software programs, and for an accountant's needs were totally different than a contractor's. And our method of handling this was to go to the University of West Florida, find a young person just graduating from college. And I remember I drove one to Montgomery, Alabama, to W.S. Newell, a huge road contractor, had a 300-person payroll doing road construction. And I dropped this kid right out of college off, and I says, write the software, do the programs. So I had to go sell something else. Because if I didn't sell 2 computers a month, we were out of business. I had to generate the cash flow. So I couldn't, and I'm not a programmer. And leaving a young man or young lady there at 22 years old that doesn't know what payroll is, doesn't know what a certified payroll is, doesn't know what job costing, all the necessary ingredients, it was just a recipe for failure. And after our year in business, looking back, we realized that you're not on the right track here. Let's be the best at one thing versus not being very good at anything. And I think that made the difference.
Once you got the business up and running and focused in on the accounting side, where did it go from there?
Well, it went great because we became the best at that business. Monroe, Louisiana was a city I'd sold one CPA firm a computer. I'd go back, he says, come on, my friends want to look at what you've got. It ended up, Jeff, there were 14 CPA firms in Monroe. We had sold 13 of them in Monroe, Louisiana. I got a call from a lady named Elfrida Upton. And I remember this from 30 years ago. She said, I don't really want to spend the money, but I'm losing all my clients to your other CPA firms. Come up here and sell me a computer, son. So I got in my car and drove to Monroe, Louisiana and sold her. But by specializing, we could be the best, and word spread that we had the best, and we would go to a lot of the big CPA firms. They'd call us in, they'd look at all the competition, and we had the best product.
Now, eventually you sold the company. How did that come about, and why?
We had grown the company, we'd been in business 4.5 years. We had doubled our sales and our profits every year for 4.5 years. Digital Equipment, up to that point, would just ship hardware to us on an open account. And they were being burned by a few other people in it, like us, who would take the hardware and then go broke and not pay them for the hardware. So they got to the point they got instituted credit limits and all the right things that you do for financial fiscal responsibility. And we could not provide them with any cash, CDs, or anything to justify the line of credit we needed for our shipments. And we're at the point where we're going to have to really slow our business down or raise some capital or sell or do something. And at the time, my partner enjoyed that. He said, I'll go take care of that, where I was then managing 11 salesmen and still having to sell a computer a month myself to make sure we could do it. My partner went and found somebody, and they came in, and this guy came in. He's with Commerce Clearinghouse. It has all the books in the lawyers' offices. He spent 2 days with us. He said, I'll be back in touch. Well, 2 months went by, we didn't hear from him. He finally called me. He said, Sandy, I'm going to come back and see you. And I said, okay, I'd forgotten about you. He came back and he said, we've looked at, he named a dozen companies, every competitor we had. He says, we've visited all of them. And he says, we like you best. And I said, wow, that's an honor. And he said, we want to buy you. And at first they said they just wanted an affiliation with Commerce Clearinghouse. So we want to buy a company, we want it to be you. And he said, we want to buy your company. We want to make you an offer. And we didn't know what to do. So they made us an offer. And my partner went and found a business broker in New York City that did transactions in our business. He flew in and he said, that's not enough money. And there's more money than I could ever imagine. And he said, that's not enough. And I went home and told my wife, I said, are we going to blow this deal here by being greedy? But the next week he brought in a company from Dallas. They came in and looked at us, liked it, flew us to Dallas the next week, made us a higher offer, and our consultant said, let's do it. And that was in late January of 1980, and by February 28th, 1980, it was a closed, done deal, and we had some money and some stock, and they owned our business. And then things changed.
And how did they change?
When you own your own business, it's your business. You're excited, you go to work every day, you see things that need to be done, you have a passion for your business. The day it wasn't ours, I felt it in your stomach, you just feel it's not my business anymore. And they came in and started telling us what to do. And some of the things they were saying, they had some more money, some capital, and it made sense. Some of the things just were, I thought, ludicrous. I mean, how are you going to do that? It just doesn't make any sense. And they basically explained it was their business now. Yeah. And it changed our feelings, and but it was the right thing for us because we had grown as far as we could grow the business.
So eventually you separated from that company?
I stayed a year and a half, and then I left. And my partner got in some trouble with them, and they came to me a year later, asked me to come back. And when I got back, the business had changed tremendously. You know, that's when computers were just falling like a rock. The computer, Jeff, that our bread and butter system we were selling when I left was a system for about $30,000. It had 2 video screens. You could do 2 different clients' work at the same time, 1 fast printer. And we were selling it for $30,000 and making $10, $12, $14,000 profit per deal. When I went back a year and a half later, that same system was selling for about $18,000. But all the expenses of salesmen, of travel, of rent, and running your business had increased as things will do. So when your margins are cut, you know, from $10,000 or $12,000 gross profit a deal to $2 or $3, and your expenses have increased, they had gone from making a nice profit to losing big money.
What eventually became of the company that bought your company?
They sold our company after 3 or 4 years, and it has sold several times. There's still part of it here in Pensacola, but it changed hands several times, and part of it I think was due just to the rapid changes in the computer, the technology business. And part of it was they were trying to manage it out of Dallas with some people that were the big box, the big IBM type of system software like big banks use. And we were in the mini computers, and it was a little different niche.
Now, once you completely separated from that, you decided to get into the automobile industry. Why the automobile industry?
Good question. When I left the computer business, after I went back, then I left again, I was 32 years old. I had a little bit of money, but not enough to really retire. And I stayed around the house. We had 2 small children. I was trying to think what I was going to do. And my wife said, "Sandy, I married you for better or worse, but not for breakfast and lunch every day. Go get a job, go do something." And partly I didn't want I didn't want to just hang around and your kids go to school. What does your daddy do? Well, he plays golf every day. I mean, so I wanted to show work ethic to my kids. And I looked and dabbled in several things for a couple of years. I mean, and I bought an apartment complex. I looked at real estate, looked at getting back in the computer business. And then a friend of mine had been a district manager with Chevrolet Motor Division, the factory man who calls on the dealerships. And he had told me about being a car dealer. And so I said, that sounds good. I could stay in Pensacola. So I went and called on all the car dealerships, and nobody wanted to sell. So then I started working with some brokers and started traveling. I spent a year. And then a wonderful gentleman named Bob Salter had Bob Salter Chevrolet, the first car dealership in Car City. And Bob and I were both deacons at First Baptist Church. We were both served on the Baptist Hospital Board of Directors, and we were friends. And I finally went back to Bob, and he was 68 years old and came back to me and said, "Yeah, I think I'm ready." So we struck up a contract and a deal, and I moved in, and he retired.
So you're in the car business. Is it love at first sight?
It was panic and fear at first sight. I got in and walked in there and realized I didn't have a clue to anything that's going on. I mean, it was totally, completely different from the computer business with the salespeople and the programmers, and it was just a different business altogether. And I scared me to death when I got there.
We talked about how the computer business changed over the years, and it's very obvious to a lot of folks. How has the automobile industry changed over the years?
The automobile business for probably my first 15 years didn't change really at all. It was basically the same business. Over the last 2 years, it's probably changed more than it has, in the first century of the automobile business. Been massive, massive changes when you look at what's happened just in the past 6 months of General Motors and Chrysler, both bankrupt, out of business, with new companies coming in, the dealerships that have been closed, the market this year at I think the lowest in 20 or 30 years, new car sales, the number of dealers going out of business. There have been rapid changes. Then you add to that the internet presence that we used to never have. There's just been massive, massive changes.
Speaking of bankruptcy, Chrysler, General Motors, obviously in challenging times. What do you think, and let's start with Chrysler first, the way that situation has been handled?
Well, I'm maybe the wrong one to ask because I'm a victim of it. We had the Chrysler dealership that we had paid a lot of money for. And the federal government, I think more than Chrysler, came in, and 789 of us who own stores no longer own the stores. They came in and took it, something we had paid a lot of money for, and they give it to somebody else for nothing. The way it was handled was not good. We had met every benchmark they asked. Car dealers are judged on customer satisfaction, CSI it's called. We were in the top 3% in the nation We met all their sales goals. We did everything they asked. And we come in and, find out on the internet. Really, I started finding out some of the local media started calling me, understand you've lost your Chrysler store. And I said, I don't know that. So they found out before we did. So the whole way it was handled was not good at all. We have been blessed in the fact that I had Mazda across the street in a little tiny building with no space for used cars. So we immediately said, we'll just simply move Mazda into the Chrysler building. We'll sell more Mazdas than we did Chryslers, and we're selling 3 times the Mazdas we were selling Chryslers. So I've been blessed and have come out of it okay.
Now, when they took it away from you, did they give you any sort of financial arrangement, or it was just
Jeff,
you're done?
They gave you nothing. They gave you like a month to be out of business, and everybody came in wanting to buy cars, feeling that they could get a good deal, and they did, because we had to dispose of the cars. They did not require the remaining dealers to take your new cars or take your parts inventory. And we lost a lot of money disposing of our parts. We were lucky we didn't have that many new Chryslers, and we dispersed them and basically came out okay. But we were very blessed, and we had Mazda to put there. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of families, second, third generation families that had a Chrysler store who lost them, and they had nowhere to turn. They have no other franchise to put there, and that was their life. And it makes you want to cry for what the damage this has done to individuals and families.
Yeah, do you think there's going to be legal recourse down the road for?
Well, I don't think there can be, because they're hiding under bankruptcy. They went bankrupt. Mm-hmm. So the company that did this to the individuals and to the people went bankrupt. And so there's nobody to sue. There are no repercussions.
Let's switch over to General Motors. That situation, has that been handled better in your opinion?
I think it has. General Motors has notified, I think it's 1,000 or 1,500 dealers. Nobody knows who they are. The dealers that were notified were given 15 months to do something with the business. Chrysler made theirs public day one, and General Motors is giving the people 15 months to find another franchise or go into used cars or whatever you want to do. So I think it was handled much more gracious for the dealers and the families involved.
Fritz Henderson, I believe, is the new Chief Executive Officer. How do you think he's doing so far?
I think he's doing good. I think they made some good calls, some tough calls up front. Back when 10 years ago, we were selling 200 Chevrolets a month. Now we sell 60 to 80 on a good month, and that's indicative of all General Motors dealerships. The imports have come on strong. There are a lot more lines out there now, and General Motors was not fast enough in shedding all their lines. And one of the reasons that the General Motors sales went down, they were trying to support 8 different products, and it takes a lot of money, billions of dollars in engineering to keep every line fresh. And they were trying to divvy up the new products, and it was a little slow cycle trying to feed so many different car lines, from Chevrolet to Pontiac, Buick, GMC. And it put our products, got a little stale, and I think that's one reason General Motors market share slid as fast as it did. Where now, where they just have 4 remaining lines, our goal, and I believe they will do it, they'll keep the money going to 4 lines instead of 8. And the products will be fresher, they'll be better, and they'll be much quicker, which will keep us up with the imports and everybody else.
Are domestic cars as good as imports?
I think they're every bit as good. I wouldn't tell you that 10 years ago. And there's facts that substantiate that. There's warranty where people come in with a problem. J.D. Power and other measuring marketing services monitor that. And they can tell you the average number of failures in the first 30 days, the first 100 days by every line. And the General Motors lines hold up now as good as the imports.
Speaking of kind of unique things going on surrounding this whole General Motors bankruptcy and the changes that are going on, Roger Penske, who many people probably see as trucks, and if you're a racing fan, you know Penske Racing, had cut a unique deal with Saturn. Now, as we tape this program, it looks like that deal has fallen through. Penske was really thinking outside of the box. What did you make of that?
Well, he was way outside the box. He was not going to manufacture the cars. It was the first time. Now the process has always been driven, controlled by the manufacturer, whether it's Ford, Nissan, BMW, whoever. They control it. Penske's was to be a totally different approach. It was going to be controlled by the distribution network, which were himself and the dealers. They were going to go negotiate with a Chinese manufacturer, an American manufacturer, and try to cut a deal to market their products, which put kind of them in the driver's seat. It was, I thought, a very challenging approach, because General Motors was going to keep supplying product for a couple of years. Then he was looking at a Chinese manufacturer and an Indian manufacturer, and to go from the pure logistics side of getting the products, keep getting the parts for service, handling the warranty. So many different hands were involved. I mean, you get this Indian car that may have a problem, or who's dealing with them, and who's going to handle the parts and the warranty, and then a Chinese company, and if, are they going to be here? And it was a challenge. I mean, I was curious how they pull it off, and it looks like they're not, but it still may change. You don't know.
Yeah. Cash for Clunkers.
Cash for Clunkers.
Did you like it?
I did. Looking back on it, it was great.
Yeah.
When it first came, I said, I don't think it's going to be that successful. And I was wrong. The federal government was wrong. They did not anticipate the need. It was not handled real well. It was announced, I think, July 1st, and it was like July 20th or 22nd before dealers could register. And we had all sold some cars because everybody had heard about it. And the first day that we could register as dealers, their computers exploded. They said they did not anticipate that much demand, and they knew it. They should have known every dealer's going to be trying to register. And then as we got into the program, there was a lot of paperwork where dealers had to enter all kind of data and have substantiated data on insurance and titles and all this stuff. And on a fairly regular basis, their computers would backlog. They'd go down just due to the excessive demand. They didn't have enough people, and it took us forever to get them paid. And at one time, we only had, we did 185 total clunker deals. And we only had, 3, 4, 5 deals paid, and they weren't paying them. And then made the commitment to hire some more people. And then they finally, early September, said, we'll have everybody paid by the end of September. And they hired thousands more people, and today we have every deal paid. So it was great, Jeff, for the economy and spurring business. I think it was great for our ecology and our environment because they've gotten off the highway a lot of old oil-burning, low-mileage vehicles and replaced them with the high-tech, high-mileage, good fuel-burning. And it's also, from another way, from safety, because a lot of these, you get a 20-year-old car that's worth $1,000. The brakes aren't that good. Right. They're ready to fall apart. And the new vehicles will be much safer for the families driving them. So I think it's good all the way around.
In this environment that we're in right now, very, very challenging, but you've actually grown your business. I mean, you added the Mini Cooper dealership. How do you do that?
When we announced the Mini Cooper, I had a press conference, and one of the media came, and this was back in March, and they said, Mr. Sansing, in light of the economy, have you lost your mind to go spend this money? And, my answer was, on a short-term basis, you could say that, but this is an investment in the future. We're in the worst recession that any of us basically still alive today have ever been through. And we're still hanging in there, and it's going to get better. And I want to be prepared for the long haul. And the Mini Cooper, we're the BMW dealer. We were number one in CSI for years, and they offered it to me. There's not a dealer, Baton Rouge on the west and Jacksonville on the east. They weren't looking for sales. They were looking for service along the I-10 corridor. And it was a kind of situation for me, Jeff, if I had turned it down, there were 100 other people who would have taken it. So on a short-term basis, is it a wise move? No. But long-term, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I'm in the car business. That's where I'm going to make my investments. We've got BMW and Mini side by side with shared management. So for me, it's a better opportunity than it could be for anybody else.
Is this downturn an opportunity for people to build something for the future? Is it time to, I guess, gut it up, so to speak? Are there some good opportunities out there?
Yes, I think there are in any business. I think most business people would like to expand and grow. Part of the question is this the time? Are we ready yet? Or have we bottomed out? Or are we better if we wait a year from now? Because unfortunately, there's some people that are having tough times, and everybody in business is struggling. Our business is way off. I was at a Chevrolet meeting today. New cars, truck sales in this Mobile, Pensacola area are off 35–40% from a year ago. And our area has been hit a little harder than other areas due to the hurricanes and our reliance on a lot of the developers and condos and real estate related. So anybody in business is hurting. A lot of people are not able to expand in a tough time. We're more interested, we've got to protect today. It's a lot of a survival instinct instead of a grow and conquer, I think, today.
Let me switch gears off something off the car business that I heard a little rumor about you, that you had an opportunity to spend a little time with some guy who evidently is pretty good at knocking a golf ball around.
Yeah, got him Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable. The president of BMW called me in middle August, and BMW sponsors one of the FedEx events, which is a playoff system for the PGA Tour, the best golfers. and invited me to come play with Tiger Woods and himself in the Pro-Am. And it was the biggest shock I've had in a positive thing. I asked him, could my son come caddy for me, and he worked it out where he could. So it was my 62nd birthday, and I'm a golf nut, playing with the world's greatest athlete right now, Tiger Woods. My son gets to come enjoy the experience and caddy for me inside the ropes. And it was just the greatest birthday I could ever imagine.
I've got about 2 minutes. What kind of guy is he?
He and I got along great. You know, if I had not, I engaged him. I went up to him and started talking. My other two partners did not. And so he was polite, you know, nice shot or say something like that. But I went up to him early on and said, Tiger, I'd like to get a few pictures. I'd like to get you to sign a few things. How do you like to do it? He said, Sandy, anytime, anytime. So we took a few pictures, had him sign a few things, and we were walking. I was with him every time, walking along with him, talking with him. When I went and talked with him, I was talking with this caddy, Stevie Williams, who is a famous caddy. My son was talking to him. We were walking up 18, and all the bleachers were there. And my son David said, Tiger, what's it like on Sunday? And you got 40,000 people yelling and screaming. Tiger says, David, I don't see him. I'm so focused, I don't see him. And one of the holes, I said, Tiger, you used to be skinny like me. You're so perfectly built now. He said, yeah, I weigh 185. He said, I was 191 before I broke my leg. But I hadn't built back up. He works out all the time. And I said, what'd you weigh early? He said, I was 145 coming out of high school, 155 out of college. But he said, I knew I had to get strong if I was going to last. But we talked, Jeff, about children, about golf, about clothes, dress, and we just had a phenomenal time.
Was there something about him as you spent some time with him that you say, boy, there's something different about this guy that makes him a champion?
Yeah, there is. He's extremely smart, and people will comment about his great golf skills and golf management, but he's so focused and competitive. I mean, he bulked up not because he likes lifting weights, but he knew he wanted to hit the ball the furthest. He wanted his body to be durable and strong, so he began a serious workout regime that he is now just strong as a rock. But just his total focus, his commitment to success. And I watched at the end of the FedEx this week, he got $10 million for winning the whole thing, and he wasn't happy because he lost that tournament to Phil Mickelson. He'd have much rather gotten, I think, the $1 million winner's check and not gotten the $10 million to have won the tournament. I mean, he's a winner.
That's a great story. And did you have a pretty good day yourself?
I had a pretty good day. But I was so caught up in the moment of pinching myself, is this real, that I really wasn't too worried about what I shot. I was just enjoying being there and having my son enjoy it and walking and talking with Tiger Woods.
That's great. Sandy Sansing, thank you so very
Jeff.
much.
Thank you.
We certainly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Sandy Sansing, a great entrepreneur here in Northwest Florida in the automotive business. We thank you so very much for spending some time with us on this edition of Conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Take good care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.